Hello, this is Claus Jensen presenting Game 7 of the Anand-Topalov World Chess Championship match. The colors have switched for the second half of the match, so Anand is once again having the white pieces, and for the fourth consecutive white game, he went for the Catalan game. So d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, g3, and in both games 2, 4 and 6, Topalov played d takes c4 here, but now he deviates, bishop b4 check. Bishop g2, bishop e7, bishop g2, castles, castles, c6, bishop f4, d takes c4, knight e5, and in this position Topalov plays an idea that was first played by Ivanchuk earlier this year. b5 is the move. And the idea is very interesting because after knight takes c6, knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, the idea here is that black wants to sacrifice this passive rook on a8 for this Catalan monster bishop on c6. Chucky chose to play bishop a6 here in the game Gelfand-Ivanchuk from Nice 2010. Topalov chose bishop g7 instead, and Anand took the rook, bishop takes a8, queen takes a8, f3, knight d5, bishop d2, e5, e4, bishop h3, and against rook f2, I guess that Topalov might have been planning the very sharp e takes d4, e takes d5, rook e8, rook e2, queen takes d5 with a very strong initiative, but also being down a whole rook for only 2 pawns. So this would have been interesting stuff. But Anand didn't play rook f2. He took the knight on d5 instead, and after bishop takes f1, queen takes f1, Anand is now up a piece for a pawn, but it's very difficult for him to develop pieces. Both his knight on b1, his bishop on d2, and particularly his rook on a1 are very difficult to develop. a4 is probably the best move for Anand. Queen takes d5, a takes b5, queen takes b5, and in this position queen c1 might have been an option for Anand. After rook e8, then rook a5, intending rook e5, neutralizing the black rook in the e file. But Anand played the risky rook takes a7, which is of course activating the rook and giving him another pawn. But it's quite dangerous for Anand. Rook e8 followed, and according to the official site, Topalov had spent only 3 minutes on the clock on the first 20 moves, while Anand had spent an hour. And with this very simplified position, you might say, the time factor should not be really important, but psychologically it's very tough for Anand to know that Topalov is still in his home preparation, and that Topalov apparently likes this position since he has opted to play it. In the game, Anand of course saw that bishop c5 could be a move, so he removes his king from this a7 g1 diagonal, and for the first time in the game, Topalov starts thinking, and he comes up with the bishop f8 in this position. Could have played queen takes b2 instead, but then queen takes c4, queen takes b1, winning back the piece, king g2, queen b2, but then comes rook takes e7, taking advantage of the back rank situation for Topalov, and Topalov has nothing better than a perpetual leading to this drawn endgame. So instead, Topalov plays this bishop f8, an interesting move. Rook c7 followed. the idea now for Anand is that queen takes b2, then rook takes c4, and the queen is still protecting the knight on b1, and d3 is no longer possible for Topalov, and this is very important for Topalov as part of the compensation for being a piece down, that he is able to play rook e2 at some point. So therefore Topalov plays d3 here, taking control of this e2 square for the rook. Bishop c3 protecting the b2 pawn. Bishop d6. Interesting now for Anand, what could be knight a3, queen d5, and rook takes c4, d2, bishop takes d4, d2, giving up the piece, leading to an endgame where Anand is a pawn up. And is this holdable for Topalov? Well, the best answer I can come up with is perhaps. So knight a3 was an option, but rook a7 was played. h6, giving air to the Topalov's king. Knight d2, bishop b4, rook a1, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and rook e2. And at this point, Anand has 19 minutes left on the clock and still has 13 moves to make before the time control. And he has to defend accurately not to lose this game. So it's quite surprising to see how Anand has actually been positionally outplayed by Topalov in this game. And he can only hope for a tactical way to save the game through either perpetual check or by giving up his knight for these two black central pawns. Queen a4, intending either queen a2 protecting c4 or queen c2 attacking c3. Knight e4, queen c2, rook c1, and now rook takes h2 check, king g1, rook g2 check, queen takes g2, queen takes c1 check, queen f1, queen e3, queen f2, queen c1, queen f1, queen e3 check, and now you might think that this was a draw, but now it's actually Anand who rejects the draw. He could have easily gotten a draw after queen f2, but instead Anand now plays king g2. And a lot of psychological considerations are made here. And I don't think that at any point of the remaining moves of the game, any of the players were really thinking they could win the game. The rest of the game seem to be mostly played for psychological reasons. So we'll just run through the remaining moves: f5, knight f2, king h7, queen b1, queen e6, queen b5, g5, g4, f takes g4, f takes g4, king g6, queen b7, d2, queen b1, king g7, king f1, queen e7, king g2, queen e6, queen d1, queen e3, queen f3, queen e6, queen b7 check, king g6, queen b1 check, king g7, queen d1, queen e3, queen c2, queen e2, queen a4, king g8, queen d7, king f8, queen d5, king g7, king g3, queen e3 check, queen f3, queen e5 check, king g2, queen e6, and queen d1. And we have a threefold repetition. And once again, I believe Topalov played a very good black game, and he must have had a moral boost from his last two black games, because in both he clearly had the initiative. So I think Anand will have to come up with something different in his next white game, which will be game 9 of the match. But first he will of course have to survive his black game tomorrow, game 8. So it's very exciting to see what will happen there. So I hope you enjoyed this game, and I hope to see you on my blog at clausjensen.com. Bye bye for now.